Hello and welcome back, Computer Science 4DS. This is Greenfoot, Chapter 4, page 70, 4.15, Counting Worms. The final thing we want to achieve is to add functionality so the crab counts how many worms it has eaten. If it has eaten 8 worms, we win the game. We also want to play a short winning sound when this happens. To make this happen, we will need a number of additions to our crab code. We need an instance variable to store the current count of worms eaten, an assignment that initializes this variable to 0 at the beginning, code to increment our count each time we eat a worm, and code that checks whether we've eaten 8 worms, stops the game, and plays the sound if we have. Let's do the tasks in order that we've listed here. This is actually relatively simple. We can define a new instance variable by following the pattern introduced above. Below our two existing instance variable definitions, we're going to add the line private int worms eaten. So that's under crab class. So in here, we are going to create a new variable. It's not of type Greenfoot image, it's of type int, and it's called worms eaten. And we've got to spell private right. There we go. Okay. And we now need to set it to 0. So that's in our constructor. This is our constructor right here that sets up the crab. So we're going to make worms eaten equal to 0. Okay, notice the single equal sign there. This initializes the worms eaten variable to 0 when the crab is created. Strictly speaking, this is redundant since instance variables of type int are initialized to 0 automatically. However, sometimes we want the initial value to be something other than 0, so writing our own initialization statement is good practice. The last bit is to count the worms and check whether we've reached 8. We need to do this every time we eat a worm, so we find our look for worm method where we have our code that does the eating of the worms. Here we add a line of code to increment the worm count. So we got worms eaten equals, oh, I forgot my semicolon there. So down here, under look for worm, look for worm right here. So if we're touching it, we remove the worm, we'll play the slurpy sound, and now we're going to assign worms, worms eaten equals worms eaten plus 1. Okay, so that adds one more to the number of worms eaten. You guys know how to do this from before. And the last thing we need is to play the fanfare sound if the worms eaten is equal to 8. And so we're going to have if, oh, wrong spot, if worms eaten equals 8. Again, the double equal sign. Okay, there's no then, just a brace. We're going to, we have to use the dot Greenfoot because it's a Greenfoot class method. Greenfoot dot play sound. So wave file. And we're going to stop the game. No parameters. Okay, so exercise 4.25 says to do that. I guess I've already shown you how to do it. You probably should have tried it on your own, but oh well. And I'm just going to show you here. Let's compile this. Looks like it's going to run. Let's just get rid of a couple of lobsters to make it a little easier to win the game. So if you go like this, everything's working good. Let's just pause for a second. And we're going to inspect here, and you can see that worms eaten is 4. And if you just pull this over to the side like so, make my space a little bigger. Okay, and let's try not to die here. And my worms eaten goes up to 5, so that does work. Let's see if I can get to 8 without dying, and see if I can make the game end. Yay for me. Okay, so there's some more ideas and exercises in 4.16. There's a few ideas there. You can try mess around with that a little bit if you want. The one that I thought might be possible is making new worms pop up when one is eaten. And then on a little bit of thinking, it might be a little bit challenging, but certainly you could give that a whirl. I do want you to do exercise 4.27, where the crab image changes fairly quickly. Just try to slow that down a little bit. Have a little counter so that the image only switches every 3 or 4 moves, something like that. You guys should be able to do that. I would encourage you to read the summary of programming techniques and the concept summary page. That's sort of what the entire chapter was about. And there are several exercises on page 73. So I'd like you to go through exercises 4.28 and 4. All the way to 4.34. That's going to take you a little while to do. I haven't done those, but I think I'm pretty sure having read that, that's certainly within everyone's ability to do that. So you're going to need some time to do that. And then when you're all done that, then the last thing I want you to do is to take your previous catching game that we started and think back to scratch, I guess. We're basically doing the same thing. So I'd like you to improve on that. Here are some suggestions. Change the images. We had balloons and like a brick or something rather. Make it a little bit better if you want to use the image paint or something rather to do that, or if you want us to get an image off the internet, that's fine too. I want for sure the world has to populate itself. There should be some sort of animation movement. There should be a timer that you have learned how to do in the exercises there, so that's why you need to do those exercises. Introduce a bad thing that kills you or reduces your health. So maybe like if you're doing balloons, maybe black balloons are bad and red balloons are good or something like that. You can either have a one life thing or you can have health. When it gets to 0, the game ends. Use the show text method at some point. You're going to have to do some investigation on that as well on your own. And any other ideas that you can make that particular game any better, just check them with me. So that's going to take you a little bit of time. And I'm not going to make a video for Interlude 3 about sharing your scenarios, but that's something that you should read on your own. If you want to share to Greenfoot, you certainly can by creating an account. If you want to export to a web page, we can do that. I know ways that we can do that. If you want to export to an application, we can do that as well. So lots of sort of opportunities there for things to do. I'll be looking at Chapter 5 myself soon and creating some more videos in the near future.